wasn't too sure about leaving town that day. Collingwood was playing Hawthorn, and In Excess were at the tennis centre that night. This bloody trip would have to be good. I was going hiking for a week with 7 others from school. We had a teacher with us called Jono, who wasn't too bad, I guess, and a guide called Andrew. He looked too serious for my liking. Ahead of us was a 7-hour drive into the mountains somewhere in the middle of Victoria. By late that afternoon, the weather was worse, and so were the roads. Andrew reckoned they were like freeways compared to the last part of the route, and he was right. By the end of the drive, we were starting to think a few days walking could be an improvement.
Well, it's Saturday night. Well, what's the time? It's about 8:10. Well, I'd be ready, just about getting ready to go out. Good night on the town.
I wasn't really sure what to expect because I haven't really been up in any wilderness areas really before.
Well, Adam had a dream that I'd fallen off a cliff, so I hope that doesn't happen.
I didn't know there's a difference between forest and wilderness, and now I do, because we're nowhere. We're here in the middle of absolute nowhere.
I think the wilderness has to be a pretty big area, but completely untouched or almost untouched by humans.
Big, so you sort of can't hear your neighbours next door.
I knew wilderness was something like uncultivated and uninhabited, but that's what it is. Yeah.
I guess there were some doubts about this whole trip, and Jimmy summed them up.
I'll probably get really wet so I can appreciate home. Slightly cold.
Oh man, look at that walking this today.
No, it's not going to be that bad.
You want to change it for me? No, I'm not going out now, it's bad.
Yeah, good idea.
Well, you'll realise from yesterday how far away from civilisation we are. We're in one of the most remote alpine wilderness areas in Victoria. Today, we're going to be travelling east along the main divide. The weather conditions here can change very rapidly. 1 minute sunshine, the next minute you won't see a hand in front of you. It's important we all keep together as a group. We've got to keep together, and you've got to realise that this is pretty wild country.
Andrew wasn't joking. I don't reckon I've ever felt so small in my life before. He told us these mountains are the heart of the Victorian Alps. You can walk from here all the way to Kosciuszko, if you really want to, that is. We were planning to camp on the highest peak in the area, Mount Howard. Andrew reckoned it'd take us a day to get up there. That's if it didn't bloody snow or something. He said this was real alpine country we're heading into, and you can get blizzards and things up there, even in summer. It sounded pretty crazy to me, but at least it was good to be out of his four-wheel drive. I was glad to see the others were finding it as hard as me. I think we all thought we'd never make it. Once we got up on the ridges though, the walking got a bit easier and Andrew got a bit more talkative.
It's a bit on this side, flowing to the Southern Ocean. It's the very watershed of the continent.
We reached the top in better time than we'd expected. We were all pretty stuffed, but I had to admit it was worth it. It was like being on top of the world.
Andrew, what are they called?
That's the Viking and the Razor. They're two of the most important wilderness areas in Victoria.
Why?
Completely untracked. Never been logged.
Why is that?
Inaccessibility.
It was hard to believe they could want to log any of the places we saw from up there. Anyone could see how fantastic it was.
How far is the Razor away from you?
I guess I must have been getting into this mountain stuff.
How high is that?
About 5,500 feet.
Oh man. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's amazing area. This down here is the headwater of the Wonnangatta River. This is the basin in front of us, all wet sclerophyll forest, and it's completely untracked. You get down in there, you can spend days in there.
When does it start get covered with snow?
Oh, you could expect snow any day now. Right along all these ridges are giant cornices where the snow blows enormous waves from the prevailing wind, and sometimes they fall off and you see avalanches coming down all across these ridges, tumbling into valleys. And often when you get here in spring, you see the forest all split.
I couldn't imagine the tents being much use if we got some of that snow. They look pretty flimsy to me.
They probably go diagonally on it.
Yep.
We weren't really good at putting them up at first either.
Oh my God, Kirsty, how do these work?
Bullets through this way.
Inside.
Oh, right.
It was amazing how fast we started to get the hang of things though. That was starting to seem like the story of this trip. You began to realise you could do things you hadn't thought about before, like the hard climbing. I hadn't thought I'd ever be interested, but being in such a great place seemed to change that. Our camp was in a pretty crazy spot though. You wouldn't have wanted to go sleepwalking. The dawns were fantastic, but I didn't see any of them. I was still having trouble with the early starts. The temperature was usually about -5, and there was ice on everything, so you couldn't really blame me. On some of the walks, we heard quite a bit about how fragile this whole area is. They reckon there's been a lot of damage done by cattle grazing up there over the last 100 years. That's supposed to be stopped around Mount Howard in a couple of years' time, but Jono said there's a lot of other areas where it's still going to be allowed. It didn't sound right to me. Sounds like Aborigines did a lot less damage. I hadn't really imagined them in that sort of area before, but Andrew knew a lot about it.
It's been populated for 40 to 100,000 years. I'll give you an example here. There's just some very young streaks of what they call native pepper. If you try one of these leaves, it tastes just like pepper, although the Aboriginals didn't come up here to eat the native pepper. They came here for the bogong moth. Every year in summer, hundreds and hundreds of Aboriginals would gather right here. In fact, this area is very important because it was a tribal boundary of 4 tribes. They used to pick the moths off the rocks, and then they'd catch them in a bark dish, pull the wings off them, shake all the dust off, and then pound them into a paste. And then with that paste, they'd either eat it raw, or they'd cook it. And it's delicious. It sort of has this sort of savoury honey flavour. And they're all in this area, and they used to come. This was neutral ground, so you can imagine the scene with bonfires and people feasting on moths.
I could manage without the moths, but I think we're all starting to get the feeling that there was something about this place. It seemed even better when you got away by yourself.
formation.
I think it's going to rain.
Yeah, rain in the next 12 to 36 hours.
Jeez, imagine having a trail bike up here.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, just stuff the whole place up.
I think it'd be fun.
I'll be okay just for transport. They'd be okay to sort of bring them up just for packs and that.
I reckon the only way you should get up here is by camping like we're doing.
Hey, look, more hikers.
G'day.
G'day.
Hi.
Where are you from? Oh, we've just come up from Canberra way.
Canberra? That's not far away.
4 weeks.
I couldn't believe it. These people had been out walking for 4 weeks. I felt like I'd been away for that long after a few days.
How long have you been doing this sort of thing?
Well, I guess, what would you be, 16, 17? Since a few years before you were born. So it's a while now. Like, the country looked a bit different then. You didn't cross any roads, whereas now you go through the logging country and you want to put your head down and just keep walking and get through that country as quickly as possible. And of course, then you hardly saw any people around either, like you'd hardly ever meet another group of people. So you've missed out a bit on that, I guess. The thing about Victoria now, though, is there's not many wilderness areas left. Like, these are really only small wilderness areas.
So cold.
That night was the coldest of the trip. It was a bit depressing too. If things were changing as fast as those women said, what was going to be left in another 20 years or so? I usually get a headache if I think too much, but the time I'd spent up there had really started things turning. I was beginning to wish that I didn't have to go back to the city so soon, and I think the others felt the same.
Oh, I really enjoyed it. I loved it. Loved, really roughing it up here for once. Up here, you find that you matter more. It's not like you're just part of a great big city network that you've got to operate in. You can be yourself up here, and you can discover a lot of things about yourself. I think it's sort of good that you get to see it. And I think it's worthwhile that everyone gets a chance to see it, and they shouldn't wreck it by logging and stuff like that.
You need to be able to see it before you just, because before you've actually come up here and you hear all these greenies and stuff, going on about the up here, and you think, oh, they're just a bunch of, but before you've actually seen it, you think that's what they are, but until you've seen it, you understand just what it means to them and what the value, in it if there is.
So beautiful, and no one has the right to take that away. It belongs to everyone.
No one should have the right to touch it at all. It should be just left as it is.
Yeah, but then what do we do then? We've got to get you.
Your wood. This is the last bit of wilderness we've got left. As Andrew was saying, we've just populated most of the other high country and destroyed a lot of the other high country, and this is the main bit that we've got left.
It felt strange to be packing up. I don't think any of us were too rapt to be going. It probably sounds a bit corny, but I felt like I'd left a bit of myself back in those mountains. I knew I'd be back there again one day.